Hello, welcome to Healing Sessions with Maxie Njuguna. In this podcast, we have an opportunity to connect with you through candid conversations. We are going to have experts coming through to speak to us in matters of healing, matters of trauma, every aspect that we may be going through, and those deep places where we have been wounded, but taking the journey of healing together. Join us in every episode, and please also go ahead and subscribe, like, share, and distribute this content to someone who needs it as we walk through this journey of healing together. Healing Sessions with Maxie Njuguna. Hello, everyone. Wow, what a joy to connect with you one more time. And thank you so much for joining us in the Healing Sessions with Maxie Njuguna. What a wonderful time that we've had through the couple of series that have passed. And I was just looking back to just check how far we've come, and this is now becoming a full community. So thank you to everyone who shares our content, everyone who is always joining us through every episode. And I believe that there is always a special takeaway for you, even as we go by and by. We've been on a series on healing the nation, and we've looked at a couple of nations that are very strategic in our conversation. We've looked at Kenya, we've looked at Rwanda, and today I just want us to wrap up this series with two more expressions. So for this episode, we are going to talk about lessons from South Korea. I just came back from South Korea just a few days ago, and I thought I will just come and share with you some of the experiences and some of the items that are key for us to consider, especially as we look at the nation. So everyone who has a passion for South Asia, or you've always wanted to be part of that world, either to visit in any way or in any form of expression, I believe that this episode is right for you. And this is also an opportunity for us to continue to cultivate the heart that we have for the nation. So for this episode, we look at the lessons from South Korea. And then next week, in our next episode, we'll wrap it up with lessons for the global church. What are the considerations that we need to consider, especially as we go forward in the season that we are in? So welcome to this episode, Lessons from South Korea. By the way, let me appreciate everyone who is joining us from that region of the world. I was just amazed by the vastness and the amazing experiences that the people of Korea have continued to go through. They've come such a long way in terms of through the Korean War and the Japanese invasion, and then being able to build up their nation through and through. Some of the statistics that I would like you to notice about South Korea is that South Korea is the number 12 on the index in terms of the wealthy nations around the world. I also want you to get this important statistic, because it was one of the joys through this trip, is that Korea is number 2 in terms of sending missionaries all over the world. It is number 2 after the United States. And they have been dispersing missionaries all over the world with a heart to see the kingdom of God established in every expression. It's a very small country of about 53, 54 million people. Life expectancy is about 85, 86. And it's also a nation of seafood. We had a lot of seafood. At first, I tasted that seafood combination and I thought it was chicken. But when I opened it up, I saw a pink shrimp there. I was like, good Lord, this is a challenge of the Great Commission. But they really enjoy a lot of seafood. And if you have a chance to visit, that is one of the delicacies that you will definitely have a chance to connect. And of course, we know that there is a wide separation between the North and the South. After the Korean War, the North side of the nation was taken up by USSR. And of course, the South separated to the United States and to Japan, leading up to South Korea and North Korea. And we know the great divide that has been happening in that region of the world. And part of the things that I'll be mentioning in this episode is for us to really deepen our heart and to continue to see the possibility of how we can pray for South Korea as well. So let's start off. I want to share with us lessons. What are the reflections that I have gathered in my quick trip to South Korea. I was there in to attend the Lausanne Congress for World Evangelization. The Lausanne Congress was started in 1974 by Billy Graham together with other evangelists who came together to challenge the church to evangelize the entire world with word and deed. And so this was the fourth Congress since the inception. It only happens every 10 years. So to some, it's an opportunity of a lifetime. And they gathered about 5,000 leaders from all over the world. These were carefully selected leaders from all over the world. And I was amazed to see over 200 nations coming together through the week to really detail ourselves into terms of how the church can be able to position itself in the world. And the theme was let the church declare and display Christ together. So the power of collaboration, part of the take home that we had is that on the last day, we were able to sign up the collaborative action plan that enables us to go forward and collaborate in various ways. And I really want to appreciate the Lausanne team for their special invite to us. And we will continue to collaborate more and more, even in the coming years as well. So the first lesson and reflection from South Korea is that the invisible powers the visible. The invisible will always power the visible. When you look at that nation and the vastness of the growth that they have achieved through the years, and you begin to look at their history, you realize that when the missionaries began to set foot in South Korea, coming from the Incheon Island into the mainland, you will realize that part of the prayers they prayed is that South Korea will receive the full message of the gospel of the kingdom and that there shall be a revival physically, economically, that God will begin to channel away poverty and there will be an exchange of power even in terms of the economic situation of the country. Because before the missionaries set forth, South Korea was one of the poor states in the world. And when you look at the 1940s, the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, there was a total shutdown in terms of the economic prowess of that nation. But when the gospel was introduced into South Korea, the invisibility power of God began to showcase its visibility in the economic situation of the nation, but also even within the political situation. And as I look at that, and as I took a few steps to walk through that nation, I realized that the invisible power, everything that is visible, is always, everything that is visible is powered by the invisible. Invisible power of wisdom, invisible power of love, invisible power of peace. These things cannot be touched. But when you look at the influence that they create, you now realize that people behave in a certain way and culture is built up because there is an invisible power that is powering those people and even in that nation. So I want you to look at the invisibility power of God in your life and realize that everything that you do is because of His grace. Many more ways it cannot be touched. Because how can you touch love? How can you touch peace? It is only visible in the outworking of your life. We see the visibility of it in culture, in economics, and in politics. Number two, the power of systems that work. Systems work in that nation. When it is time to line up to get to the train station, people have been cultured. You know, when I was standing on those queues and the temptation to just jump off and go to the front side, and you realize that it is a shock to many when they see you behaving that way because that is not their culture. And I thought about it and I said, if you are to behave that way in another part of the world, they will definitely see as a keen thing that they are used to. But you could see the expression of shock when someone is trying. Of course, some of them are not, there were other nationalities and coming with a behavior that is set from their own cultures. And you realize that it's foreign to them because systems work. If it is time for us to move from point A to point B to point C, we don't go to D because the system has been set to move from A to B to C. It is when you get to C that now you can move to D. the power of systems. And when systems work, they begin to create a certain order. Let me tell you that excellence cannot thrive if systems don't work. When systems are out of pace, when systems become outbound and they are taken to a place where they are malnourished, to the place where they are no longer effective, you realize that excellence cannot be able to kick in. The foundation of excellence is effective systems, great systems that can work. That gives an elaborate atmosphere for excellence to be able to manifest. So we see that as we come through this nation. Number 3, I was amazed by the atmosphere of their great hospitality. I mean, these people will smile at you in the day, at night, during the rainy time, during the sunny time. Hospitality and that openness of heart and that friendship is always something that they have treasured over the years. And I realize that because they have come from a very deep time of war, many people were made to be orphans because of the Korean War, and some have suffered a lot of disadvantage over time. The invasions that have happened into their nation, in a way, they have that kind of history has activated themselves to a place where they must now function in love. They must now function in the tranquility of peace because they understand that there is a time where they could not see each other eye to eye. And they have been able to recalibrate themselves from the effects of war to realize that for us to survive in the present and even in the days to come, we must walk in the fullness of love, in friendship, and in hospitality. And so when you go to one of the brothers that we met there, Daniel, gave us a very elaborate example of what hospitality will mean. And he said that every nationality, every person that I meet who is from another nation, I will always try my best to do something that will give them a safe landing in this nation, because they have come from their own background, their own home, and they may not know anyone in this new place, but I'll make sure that I do something tangible for them so that they can appreciate their time in Korea. The power of great hospitality. And I thought about it and I was like, wow, some of us are yet to get to a place where we fashion and step out of the way so that others can be able to have an expression of the things that they need. It comes with tokens of sacrifice so that those who are from disadvantages and those who are not like us can be able to find expression and be able to go forward because there's someone who is willing to be hospitable. Number 4, I saw the extent of revival in that nation. And I realized that they are not just experiencing a revival that is spiritual in nature, but there is also a physical revival that is happening in that nation. And I realized that the texture of revival is not just spiritual. The texture of revival must be economical, it must be political. It is the full backdrop of revival that ensures that a people are able to advance. And that is why they can be able to gather resources and send missionaries all over the world, because that too is part of revival. There is a kind of revival that comes to awaken you spiritually, but there is another form of revival that will come to awaken systems economically so that people can be able to be set free. And do you realize that even in Egypt, the revival came through the wisdom of economics that came upon Joseph? Because when people are hungry, they are not able to advance. There is a portion of revival that we have not yet contended for that goes beyond the awakening. When people are awakened to come into the light of the gospel, we must now begin to build them up as an army that will now go forward and begin to rebuild every structure of society. And then lastly, we cannot close this special moment of reflection about South Korea without mentioning North Korea, because the revival in the Korean land began in the city of Pyongyang, which is now a portal in North Korea. It is a city, it is the capital of North Korea. And revival began in that city before it expanded into the west of the Korean land into the south. And before the separation of North and South Korea, Pyongyang was the nerve center that established the awakening in that nation. Now, that place, when you look at North Korea, it has now been turned to be a set place for the current leader. He has established it as a place where his leadership, with the statutes that have been raised to showcase his might and to showcase the reigning power of his family. And when we pray for the Korean land, we must pray that God will revive North Korea, because North Korea is the key. North Korea, the revival, the first missionary encounter and experience was in North Korea before it went down to the south. And so if South Korea is going to have a fullness of its destiny, we must contend and continue to pray that there will be a revival, that the gates of North Korea will open up, and that the 23 million Korean people who are in North Korea who cannot be able to leave that land, because if you go through China, you are taken back to North Korea. If you go through Russia, the great divide between the North and the South means that you cannot be able to escape. It is a long way for you to go to Japan, because the vastness of the sea cannot give you an adequate opportunity to get there. And so some of them, if not most of them, are curated in an experience where they are shut down from the entire world. But there is a great hope. The same way that evangelists like Billy Graham were able to set their foot and they were able to release a message of grace and hope in that land, we too know that their time is coming where we'll see the establishment of God's power in the land of Korea. And so we see the invisible power that has curated the visible. We see the power of systems that are working, the atmosphere of great hospitality, the extent of revival, which is not just spiritual, but it is also physical and economical and political, and also the hope for North Korea. The South Koreans are still praying and yearning that God will do a great work in that part of North Korea. And so, as we reflect upon South Asia, especially in this nation of South Korea, our prayer is that the revival that we have seen over the years, there will be a set mode again, and that God's people will be able to see greater possibilities even more and more. South Korea has become a trailblazer for many years, even in terms of their passion for the gospel. We continue to pray for the church there, that they will continue to display the goodness of God in all its forms. And even as they continue to trailblaze for Christ, may we pick up some of these lessons that we can apply into our different communities and cultures even going forward. Does that mean that the nation does not have any disadvantages or challenges? They have plenty of them. They are supreme challenges that they continue to battle with, especially the exodus of young people from the church. Young people are no longer attuned to follow the ways of God. They have actually been tarnished away from the call. So they are facing mighty wars and challenging their plight every day. But they have kept some of these powerful structures and systems and principles that continue to keep them going forward. And they have learned that even in the system of disadvantage, we can maximize on our advantages so that we can be able to make progress. These are the lessons from South Korea in this Healing the Nation series. And I hope that as you reflect upon them, you'll also see them working upon your life. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of this episode. We shall definitely see you in the next episode as we conclude this series on Healing the Nation. God bless you.